Hello, everybody. My name's Joey.
I'm Pros, and we are here today with the winner of Cubevitational 5, second time winner in Scott.
Hey there.
Hello. So yeah, I just thought we'd do a quick kind of walkthrough of some of your decks, some of the stuff that you went through on the day to get your second win. So we started off in the Everywhere Cube, which is a cube that we copied from CubeCon last year and has not been updated since. So something that I kind of printed as just like a goofy little fun thing, but people have latched onto it like pretty tightly, I feel.
Yeah, I remember the first time we drafted it, you said we'll probably only do each of the two you grabbed from CubeCon once and then move on. But we've drafted this, I think, like 3 times throughout the season, so it made
Mhm.
sense to put it on the poll, and it easily was one of the two that won the poll to be included in the Cubitational amongst the
Right.
players.
Scott, do you remember, did you vote for this one?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it just produces the kind of games that a lot of our players really seem to enjoy, and especially a lot of the players that would have qualified for the Cubitational. So, yeah, I was pretty excited about this one for sure.
Yeah.
It also, despite having such a wild premise, is a middle ground of a lot of cubes. Like a lot of our cubes, I imagine, is kind of extreme in different directions. But everywhere cube, by the nature of just its design, can kind of do whatever you want and feels most like a generic cube, outside of the fact, obviously, that everyone's going to be 5 color.
Right, right. And for anybody who's not familiar, as you may be able to tell from this deck picture, all of the basic lands in the basic land box are everywhere. The token that the Overlord of the Haunt Moors, I believe, the Green Overlord produces.
You say
They're
so?
a non-basic land with all 5 basic land types. So, as Joey said, pretty much everybody's playing 5 colors. There's not really a reason not to. Um, and yeah, as you can see by the
The
mana
spells that
cost
are
in
laid
this
out.
deck,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it produces some pretty wild looking piles. So
Yeah. So, despite the ability to like play basically any card at any time, you still want to like drill down onto some kind of strategy, some kind of cohesive idea behind your deck. Um, there's like a pretty solid like aggro deck with lots of like undercosted like domain powered creatures and whatnot. Um, there's also the opportunity to build a lot of like really grindy control piles with just all of the best removal spells in whatever colors you see and whatever finishers. I opted for a combo deck question mark. I was sitting to Joey's left, and in the first pack he passed me an Emrakul, and I, having drafted the cube a few times, I'm aware of the couple of cards that let you like cast any card for just one of each color mana.
mhm.
The green ley line you see pictured in Joda, those kind of things. So I was like, well, let me, I got an Emrakul early. Let me see if I can make this kind of strategy work. Um, I think I took just like a removal spell with my first pick, so it was pretty easy to slot into like a kind of slower, kind of control-y combo deck with the Emrakul or uh,
The worm.
sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
World's Spine Worm or Atraxa also great to put in there if
Yeah,
you don't
just
have
just like big
Emrakul.
spells that we're trying to cheat out, and the way this cube does it is by like paying one of each color of mana via a few different cards or like a Genesis Ultimatum.
Right.
And a great thing to settle into because, as you mentioned, I was the one passing to you, and I was in the aggro deck you mentioned with territorial Kavu and a bunch of the things that this deck wouldn't be interested in at all. So, kind of got the benefit of me not taking any of the cards you would really want, besides fighting over cheap removal on occasion. I think you were pretty open coming from the right to be in this lane.
Yeah, and like everybody wants cheap removal, so like we're all going to be fighting over that
Right.
in some respect. But I thought I was going to be able to wheel a lot of like the enablers to this kind of interaction, and that is what happened. I ended up getting like basically all the pieces I wanted for that kind of thing.
Were there any
And
that you let go, counting on them coming back?
Yeah, I wheeled the green ley line for sure, and I think I might have taken Joda when I saw it immediately, but um, I wheeled at least the ley line and maybe another piece. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, the World Spine Worm came like very late in one of the packs. I recall.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of competition for that like realm of cards for sure here, which to your benefit.
Yeah, the archetype up of just cast the big spells is pretty common in everywhere, but this does it in a very different way, where it's not taking the 5, 6, maybe 7 mana spells, where it's aiming a little bit higher on the curve, the ones that are going to be less fought over.
Yeah, and there was some derision about this archetype before the draft, so I wasn't positive that like this was going to work out, but I had the opportunity to jump into it so early, and I hadn't tried it yet, so I just figured I'd give it a shot and see how it went.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely learned some things about the archetype. I think this build is lacking in a few like pretty important areas. I have like the good high end, and I think all the enablers. I'm not sure if actual Fist of Suns is in here, but
I don't
I have
think so.
I have several of the ways to cheat these things in. I am short like card draw. Like I have some cantrips early, and I have a Factor Fiction, but I really wanted like couple things in like the 2 to 3 mana range that just put more cards in my hand because I just like got out attritioned a lot.
Speaking of attrition, seeing Factor Fiction and Consign makes me really wish that a card like Shifting Wildwood was in this queue, because this would be the perfect deck to find it in. Just being able to late game copy an Emrakul, or I
Right.
guess it's harder to get Emrakul in the yard with Delirium, but attracts Omniscience.
Yeah, and I think another way you can go about this strategy is like a more ramp focused thing, so you're not having to like play a control game until you pull all your pieces together. But my games played out in such a way that I was just always like card short, or a mana too slow, or like had 2 pieces but not a third or whatever. Like I was always just like a little bit short of stabilizing the board or doing anything impressive.
Right, we see that the curve jumps up to 3 pretty quickly, only 8 cards that cost less than 3 in the deck, it looks like. So maybe a little tough to double spell in the middle turns to catch up if anyone's starting to run away with it.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. I don't recall any specific like fun interactions in these games. They were well, it's a couple weeks after the fact at this
Right.
point, and also like this was our first draft in a very long weekend, so some of the details are escaping me. But
Yeah, no, I mean if you don't have any other stories, I think
yeah, I take like sort of decent notes when I'm playing games or tournaments. So I know that I played Brian in round 1. He was on like a Jeskai Revelation like full control build. Um, I got pretty demolished, I think. I didn't really have good counterplay for his top end. Like I have a counter squall and a Venser, but he was way more equipped for that kind of fight. So
And if he can shut down either of your couple of enablers, it can be real rough.
actually I'm lying. I actually stole this one. I like I don't remember the details again, but it looks like he mulliganed in a couple of the games. Yeah, I don't know. I I did actually get this match. It was the other 2 I had no shot in, but
That is surprising, because, yeah, I saw Brian's deck. Brian's deck seems well positioned to beat this, maybe a bit unlucky on his end.
you mentioned that he
yeah,
mulliganed, and with this being a cube that mana fixing is very rarely a problem. It can be really brutal, even just having to play off of 6 cards, because when every card is like such high quality, even being down one of them can swing that so much in one direction, it feels.
yeah. I think this was, if I'm trying to like pull the pieces back to the front of my mind, and I think in our game 3 we just like attritioned a lot, and
Mhm.
then I like hardcast an Atraxa that he didn't answer immediately, and just the cards like put me over the top. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know, hard to say, but I
as
did beat
Atraxa
Brian.
does.
I lost to Matt, who had like a tempo build that I just basically had no tools for. He just ran me over. I like changed his life total twice. I just got trucked in both games. So and then I played Spurlock in round 3, who again was on another like controlling deck that doesn't, according to my life pad, didn't really do much of effect in either game. He just kind of wore me down. So ended the
Yeah.
first draft at 1 and 2.
Yeah, not necessarily where you want to start, but someone's got to be 1 and 2. So thank you for following.
Yeah,
down that sword.
and the first, like, I like everywhere cube. I wouldn't say I'm like super well practiced at it. And the second cube on the day 2 is not one I love playing generally. So like the first day was a day in my mind I was just trying to get through, like
Right.
if I could end at like 50% or better, that's like a huge W for me with this cube lineup. So
Mentioning the second cube, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, so the second cube was the artifact cube, selected by Matt as the number 1 overall points accumulator for this entire season, which was a bit longer than a normal season, but yeah, still, I believe he very barely snuck it out as well. Trying to remember. Yeah, looks like he beat Joey by 1 single match to be able to pick a cube for this event. So picked his artifact cube.
yeah, this is definitely Matt's baby. He has been working on this thing for a long time, both in design and like the visual flair. Like it may be hard to read from this picture, but lots of these cards are foil. There's lots of like really beautiful versions of everything. I'm a big fan of the sleeves he uses. Like aesthetically, this thing is among my favorite cubes, but
Yeah.
it also produces the kinds of games that I don't really love. Like if you see my list of cubes I'm interested in for CubeCon, like basically anything that has like this is a synergy based cube, like I'm out. I don't want to play those. And that's very much what this cube is. So this was another one I'm just like, I gotta just get through this thing and try and get a win or two and just move on.
That being said, in Matt's cube, decks like this are a thing I'm really drawn to. Urza, Legion Extruder, specifically 6 mana Urza, Legion Extruder, Abrade, Fire Nation Drill is a new addition that I've found to be really powerful. Brea is obviously really powerful. Prismari Command is great. Like, this has probably, like, if I made a list of my top 20 or 30 cards in the cube, this has like a third of them easily. The lower end of this deck, however, leaves me wanting quite a bit.
Yeah, so the way that I normally try to get through this cube when we draft it on a cube day is I try and pick some very focused, very like aggressive leaning strategy and just try and ignore all the synergy stuff because my brain just doesn't work that way. I just like get overwhelmed with all the options. But I opened up Brea, and that card is powerful enough that I felt like I couldn't ignore it. And I think once you have a Brea, you want to be like a control-y deck that has to play like longer games to some extent. So that's sort of what drove this. It's definitely not what I wanted to do when I sat down for this draft, but like the power was there immediately, and I kept getting like good removal options and things like that. So this is where I ended up. I'm sure that another drafter would have like drafted that seat slightly differently and ended up with a more cohesive deck, but this is where I ended up. So
one of the things I love about this Brea deck is obviously Legion Extruder, Saw Blades, and the Fire Nation Drill have residual value. Legion Extruder obviously head and shoulders above the other two, but you have several of those like removal artifacts that then stick in play, so Brea then can turn them into things. Unfortunately, not much in the way of like affinity things. Even Urza is only artifact creatures, so this is maybe the best of the Urza decks, but still a powerful card to have here with everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and I don't know that I agree with your statement that maybe somebody else would have drafted it differently or whatever, because I mean a lot of these cards are really good and they fit together really well.
Well, I definitely agree that like I don't know the top like 15-ish cards in this deck are like great, but I think it's the other
Yes.
eight cards or whatever that I like. Probably somebody would have put other pieces in those spots that work better overall or whatever, but again, I can't. It's so hard for me to think. Like the the Great Door, Matt Solant,
Yeah.
it barely functions in this deck. Like I don't have
Yeah.
enough permanent types to ever flip it. I think so. Like it's stuff like that is like maybe good in some games, but overall, probably there was a better card that I saw that I could have put in there, and I just didn't.
Right. It's definitely a cube where knowing what all the cards do, like, is really helpful, and having to
Yeah,
look through a pack of cards that you don't know at the same time as you're figuring out how those cards like fit together, yeah, can be tough for sure.
yeah. And my first pick overall was like, well, you're gonna have at least 4 colors of mana in this
Yeah,
deck, so
exactly.
like I couldn't like put blinders on and just ignore some colors. Like I had to read so many cards, and it took a toll. So this is where I ended
Yeah.
up, and then obviously after all this preamble, Matt is my round one opponent. So I actually got the first game from him, and I don't remember how. I probably just played powerful cards and whatever. But in the next 2 games, his synergy engines really came to play, and I think in the last game, like the last turn or two he played, he took upwards of 10 actions in a turn, and then the board was massive, and I couldn't do anything about it. So
Yeah.
he really like flexed his muscles in that match for sure.
Matt was on a simulacrum synthesizer deck and had lots of
Yeah.
ways to trigger it, and just other cards with similar effect, like Nettle Cyst makes the germ into essentially one of those constructs. So just tons of payoff for flooding the board with artifacts, which this deck has some removal, some interaction, but Urza's really your only chance at keeping up once the board starts to get flooded. Maybe
Right.
Legion Intruder can keep up if you had enough interaction, but that's going to be really tough in that matchup, I think.
Yeah, and it was, and I lost that one for sure.
I would believe it.
Yeah. Next, I played Joey, who was on. I have in my notes Blue Black Affinity. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, I was Esper, but I
Oh, I
had
missed an
not
entire color. Crazy.
right. Looking back at my deck, I had only about like 8 white cards. So, oh no, I missed
Okay.
a few, like more like 10. But um,
Well, that's weird. Maybe I just wrote it down wrong. Do you remember the games very much? Because I'm drawing a blank on those.
I remember neither of us got our wheels spinning too much, which was common for me throughout that draft. Like I had a bunch of different pieces, lots of very cheap creatures. I think I had a lot of the things that you would want to go with your Urza. I have a bunch of my affinity. Top end is the Frogmere Inverse Enforcer, which is a 7 drop with affinity, Thought Monitor, which is a 7 drop with affinity, and Krang, which is a 8 drop with affinity. And throughout the draft, I found that I was drawing either all 3 of those or none of those. So I wasn't getting quite the balance I needed. Oh, Demonic Junker, also a 7 drop with
You know,
affinity.
I was gonna say
So
you made the comment about not getting your wheels spinning, but that seems especially punishing for you because you have 2 cars in your deck, so seems really tough.
yes. The Regalia showed up in one game the whole day, the whole draft. I'm pretty sure Demonic Junker also only showed up like once, which I love Demonic Junker. It's one of the better cards that was in my deck, and only drawing it once speaks to me not having the best of that draft.
Mhm.
So I don't actually remember which one of us won, but I remember it was not riveting gameplay.
You won our first game. I got the other 2. Yeah, I don't. The second one looks close. Like we were both at 3 life at one point, but I eked that one out probably with Brea activations or something.
Yeah, if there's a point where we're both at 3 life, that is almost certainly a point that favors you, because I assume I got you to 3 life meaningfully before you got me to 3 life, because my deck is way better in the early game. It's unlikely I'm sneaking in too many extra points later on.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I escaped with at least one match win, and then I played Brian again to bookend my day. I played him round 1 on the day, and then the last round of this draft. Um, and I beat him in 2 games. They look pretty clean. We both mulliganed in game 2, but I don't really remember the games. I don't know. I probably just did Brea things to him. And then I escaped the 2 cubes that I was not really like looking forward to like bolster my tournament. So
with the 50% record that you were aiming for too.
yes, yeah, I ended 3-3 and honestly ecstatic, especially after the 1-2 opening. Like the 1-2 opening into my least favorite cube of the lineup. So yeah, I was thrilled to be 3-3.
And to contextualize too, I mean that's we had Diddert who went undefeated on day one, but he was the only person. So 3-3 actually had you just one match. We had one 6 win, two people with 4 wins, and then two people with 3 wins. So not even out of contention.
Yeah, as is always going to be the case, when one player does really well, it means there's going to be that gap. We're not going to
Right.
see there can't be any players at 5-1 if a player's at 6-0.
Right.
So
Exactly.
4-2 was the best record possible with Diddert running the table. So really, to everyone's benefit, if he just keeps that up, like being
Right.
at least 3 match wins behind means that going into day two, the third draft we're about to talk about, really, if Ditter keeps beating the people at 4-2, it gives the best chances for people at 2-4 and 3-3 like Scott to sneak in to
Yeah.
one of those higher seeds.
And just a reminder on the format, so that the top 4 seeds in the final draft get a bye. The top 2 seeds get 2 byes. So um, is does kind of seem that like everybody else is playing for that second seed at this point. With only one draft to go, it'd be really tough to imagine somebody 6-0 not ending up in the top 2. But yeah, only being 1 win back of that second bye is pretty big. So, but that did bring us to the second day.
And you mentioned that you didn't love the lineup of cubes on the first day, but felt better about the second day. So we started day two with Premodern. Any general thoughts on approach to this cube besides the fact that you're old and these cards are old?
Yeah, these cards I'm just way more familiar with on like a base level. I don't have like a strong strategy preference here. I'll draft kind of whatever seems open. And in this particular instance, blue definitely felt open early. I think my pick one pack one was opposition, and it was opposition or another powerful card, and I just sort of like picked what I wanted to play with more. And the blue from that point was flowing pretty openly, and I was looking for like what seemed open to pair with it, and that it just ended up being white. I got a very late Mirari's Wake that I decided to try and make work because I just like that card, and that opened the door for this Palancron nonsense. But I was just sort of like blue and white, good cards, play a control game, and kill them with whatever. Which that's like a pretty solid strategy in pre-modern, just generally. So
Right, you have both the enchantments that make creatures Sacred Mesa and is it mobilization?
yeah, and this pile of cards on the left are cards that I considered playing also and may have sideboarded in or out depending on matchups. So you can notice the Goblin Trenches. I actually had all three like enchantments that produce a bunch of creatures. That one's on the sideboard because infinite mana doesn't really work with that because you're limited by the number of lands you have in play also. So I started the other two.
Right, and your red mana is limited. You have the plateau to fetch for, but this allows you to only really need red for the kicker on Jilt, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do have a Felwar Stone, so if my opponents have red, that helps there too. But Jilt is not like a terrible card to just play for blue, but
For
it's
sure.
so good if you have the red. And I had a little bit that's kind of free, so I just ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
this looks nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
this deck was quite fun. Again, I played Brian in round one, which he must have been tired of at this point. Um, his deck actually ended up being like the matchup that was going to be the most difficult, and he actually beat me in game one pretty handily. I did manage to like he was like ramp things with lots of like creatures. Like I think he was the Raphaelos deck.
I think
Um,
so.
yeah, so like game one he just did his thing, and I didn't really interact well. But the other games I probably wrathed or just otherwise controlled the board enough to for my top end to take over. And then my next two matchups were far more lopsided. I played Yunker in round two, who was like white black aggro, who he had like some rough mana. He was, I think, playing Wasteland, but he also had like double white and double black cards, and that's that's a pretty tough ask in Premodern. So I was able to just like control his early attempts at aggression, and then he just like basically didn't have interaction for anything I was doing. And then I
Right.
played Matt in round 3, which both of those 2 matches are on camera if you want to go back and watch. Um, Matt was like white black reanimator.
Yeah.
So he similarly didn't have a lot of interaction for what I was doing, and he also did not really have a clock to pressure me. So like go back and watch if you want, but I don't know that those games are going to be very interesting to review because they were pretty lopsided.
Yeah,
And I just
unfortunate for Matt too that his reanimate threats are cards like Symbiotic Worm and a Chroma, which your deck has very clean answers to.
Yeah, and I definitely brought in the Mana War against him and the Evacuation too. I think like just he really, I don't know how the cards would have had to line up for him to overcome me in that match, but it didn't happen on that day, and I nabbed a 3-0, which felt incredible. Obviously, they always do.
I assume it would be off the back of a brutal hit to Torok, because the matchup
like
Oh yeah,
heavily in your favor.
Oh yeah, for sure. Him could get you always, but it didn't happen. So
just
clean 3-0, and I went into my favorite cube. It's been my favorite for years and years. I don't know how anyone's ever gonna overcome it. I love Vintage Cube. It's the best.
Yeah, so did manage to get the 3-0. Unfortunately, did end up only in the 3rd slot though. So looking at 1 bye, not 2. But still nothing to shake a stick at there with the bye. That means that at this point, with our double elimination bracket, you only had to win 4 matches. Compared to some people who, let's see, what's the max here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you would only have to win 4 matches. Some people could have to win up to 8 matches.
Right,
so yeah,
with a loss to give,
disparity.
obviously increases the number of matches, but with a loss to give, that
yeah,
pretty nice seat to be in.
Nobody came in with an 8 match streak needed to win the thing. That's just the max number that somebody could play with no buys and losing round 1. So so
Vintage.
So Vintage. So what happened in this draft?
Okay, so pick 1, pack 1. I'm looking at a Strip Mine and I'm looking at a Mishra's Workshop, and none of the other cards like compete with either of those.
Mm-hmm.
I generally don't love picking Mishra's Workshop that early. That's a card I kind of like want to open and wheel, and if it wheels, then I'm like, okay, Artifacts is on. Let's do that.
It's a weird spot because I kind of feel like that's a card that I either want to open exactly like pack 1, pick 1, or like show up in pack 3 when I really want it. It's in the middle, but I think that it gets weird. Yeah.
So I think probably the correct pick, if there is such a thing, is Strip Mine, and especially in our group, I think green is like generally underdrafted. I know Joey likes it a lot, and I probably would have been fighting with him, but
I think me, Brian, and Spurlock are all like somewhat green drafters. Brian prefers to only be in there for combo potential, as he did end up being this draft because you were passing to him. So I'm not sure if he would have been in green if you hadn't passed him that Strip Mine, but you were sitting between Brian and I, correct?
Brian was on my right.
So you were sitting right after Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know Brian was on my right because of what's going to happen in the next pick, which I'll get to in a minute. But regardless, obviously, I took the workshop here, mostly because I don't really enjoy Strip Mine games. I just don't find them very fun, honestly.
Right.
Like, it's great if you KO your opponent on turn 1 because they like kept landlight hand or you assembled a lock or what, that's really fun for one person, but I don't know. It's just not my jam. So I took the workshop and I was like, if this comes together, I'm going to have a really powerful deck. And then Brian passed me his pack and I looked at a Soul Ring, stared me in the face. We come to learn that he took Time Walk and he had just opened 2 absurdly great cards in his first pack. So my draft started with Workshop into Soul Ring, and in my mind, I'm like, all right, green light. Like, let's push blue and Artifacts as hard as we can, and it was just pretty open. Like, I don't think people fought me for much. I got Tinker 5th, I think. Hold on, I actually took a picture. I can send you if you want to include it in the video of my first 10 picks, looks like, and it was Workshop, Soul Ring, Ugin, Tinker, Retrofitter Foundry, Cap Cannoneer, some artifact that starts with S, probably Soul Guide Lantern or the top. I didn't take a super clear picture of that. Soul Guide Lantern, I think. Then Phantasmal Image Coalition Relic, Portal to Phyrexia to go with my Tinker, and Phyrexian Revoker, looks like.
Yeah.
I also love getting Ugin that early because Ugin is a standout card that changes somewhat the evaluation. Both Ugin and Tinker make you want to have as many of the one-drop artifacts as possible. Obviously, if you end up picking up Academy, that's really nice, but like having Workshop and Soul Ring, that kind of leans you towards more the Might Stone and Weak Stone effects, which you do have here by the end of the draft. Similar Coalition Relic, Nettle Cyst, but specifically Tinker and Ugin, having them early maybe pushes you towards drafting Chromatic Star or Soul Guide Lantern in spots where you might not otherwise. So
Well,
good to have
that
those
and
early.
I'm a devoted Luis Scott Vargas cube draft video watcher. And if anyone else watches those, you all know that he is big on the artifact deck, and he takes 1-mana artifacts with reckless abandon over like anything. Basically, it feels like sometimes he's just like, "Oh, this costs 1 as an artifact. I'm in. I'm taking it." And so I modeled some of my picks after that too.
For sure. And you have the payoffs that reward that. So it's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, and then pack 2, I opened a Glee Mox, so I'm already powering up a little bit more. I picked up another Mox in Mox Opal, some mana artifacts, and basically at the end of the draft, I was thrilled. I was feeling extremely good. I thought I had a very very good chance to win the whole tournament, and well, I guess we're recording this video, so you already know that I did in fact do that. So
Looking at the list, I see this town. Do you have anything in this deck that combos with this town? I guess the Might Stone and Weak Stone is a nice one to reset. But
yeah, that
honestly,
was sort of like the last card I added in the deck. Like there, I think in an optimal version of this kind of strategy, maybe you don't include that, but it actually ended up pretty solid for me. Like I didn't do anything like super degenerate, but just like I think one of the games against Spurlock in the finals that's on camera, I think I had a pretty nice this town that
I think
like
that card is actually very good here. I mean, you have all of these 1 and 0 cost artifacts, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. I
yeah,
think
it
it seems
was
great.
extremely low cost to include. I'm just saying
Right.
I didn't do anything like super degenerate with it.
Oh,
I
sure,
do
sure,
think I
sure.
bounced like my Might Stone once, but like a lot of times it was just like pick up my 0 drop to bounce your thing
Yeah.
and then
right,
just put my 0 drop back into
you're not
play,
getting
which
that much more value out of it than unsummoned sometimes. Though I guess based on how the mana in this deck turned out, you can do the kind of forbidden mode on this town of targeting 2 of your opponent's things. I don't know if that came up at all, but
I don't think it did, but I would have been happy to do it. Like I had an abundance of mana most of the times I
Hmm.
was playing this deck. So yeah,
so we have
round
the finals versus Spurlock on the camera, but
yeah.
were there anything in the first 3 matches that stood out to you? Any interactions or anything?
Well, I had that 1 round bye. I played pros in the second round,
Hmm.
who got a game for me in the middle of the set, but I don't recall pros. Do you remember those games at all, or?
I mean, I was playing like the black green. I had the Chain of Smog combo, strip mine and stuff, and I think the
Yeah.
second game, I just didn't get run over. But the first and third games, I'm pretty sure you tinkered on turn 2 and 3 respectively,
Oh yeah, just early
and
tinkers. I did that a lot,
yeah,
which definitely helps.
yeah,
And interestingly, you being directly to my left in that draft, you valued strip mine as high as I was, right? Like you took it second pick overall.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of in the same boat of like I think those decks have gotten a bit harder to draft as they've taken the crucible effects out over time. Um, but yeah, I don't think there was anything else in that pack that really competed with that strip mine.
Yeah. So yeah, early tinkers probably, and then Matt was my next opponent, and he was on like a very solid like green white aggro sort of strategy, which is not a deck I see a lot in Vintage Cube, and Matt's like he's such a good drafter. He sees things that I don't see at all, and he just puts together like really excellent decks very often. No
Yeah,
surprise he was like a top point earner. But this particular strategy didn't have a lot in the way of interaction for what I was doing, and what I was doing was pretty powerful, and I had a pretty good version of it, so I just kind of ran him over.
Mhm.
He actually got a game off of me, but I didn't feel like the games were very, very tough.
looking at his deck, it does seem like he has a lot of the cards that I would splash. Like I imagine this being either green red splashing white or green white or sorry, red white splashing green for some of
Right.
these cards, but this has none of the red cards, which are often the reach that you need to close out a game or the kind of extra push in aggro. So being the more mid-rangey version, definitely bad when your opponent's tinkering or ooganing within the first few turns of the game.
Yeah, not a lot of complaints from the white half of his deck. I think Ocelot, Pride of Johnny, Stone Fortune, Sigthalia, Giver of Runes, but the green I think is not the ideal pairing there.
Yeah, and we will learn moving into my next round against Spurlock that all of the red ended up with him, and he was like a pretty standard looking Boros deck. I never saw power out of him, I don't think, but he had an Ancient Tomb that he drew pretty frequently, and that let him like speed up. He had really powerful 3 drops, Bombardiers for sure, but I think there were some other ones as well.
Agent
Bombardiers.
Bishop, a new addition, but very, very powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
also
yeah,
Rabble Master Lelia. Yeah.
yeah. And no offense to my previous opponents, but this was the match that I felt like maybe I could lose. He had like the more he drew Ancient Tomb in a game, the more I was like, okay, well now I might be dead, you know. And he drew Ancient Tomb a lot in our
Mhm.
games. He won our first game, and then it was another like 2 quick tinker draws, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely game 3. I wrote like no life total changes, so I think I tinkered a Krang out and just killed him quickly. Game 2 is a little more involved according to my notes, but I got him, knocked him in the losers bracket.
The game again that we have captured on camera with the Krang that gets tinkered and then
Well, that was the second time we played. This first time I'm talking
oh,
about
gotcha.
that was we played off camera and I knocked him into the losers bracket and he fought his way back up to have a rematch in the finals there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and that finals is on camera. He had to beat me in 2 matches because I was in the upper half. I was like the winner of the top bracket.
Yeah, needed a bracket reset.
Yeah, and game 1 in the finals. I mean, it's on camera. I don't have to like go through it super detailed, but I believe was a pretty quick tinker. I don't know. Go watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really
Game
remember either.
two, game two, I had a fairly early tinker, but my life total was being pressured, and I thought for a while about getting Krang versus just getting a Bolus Citadel. I was at 14 at the time, if I remember right. And I decided on Krang largely because, as you'll see in the video, for whatever reason, I just assumed Krang had Vigilance as a part of the keyword soup on that card. And so I was like, oh, I could attack him and block and live or whatever. And then we learned that that was not true. It did not have Vigilance. So I was in a much worse position. And hindsight, after I shuffled my deck and saw the next card was a Sensei's Divining Top, like if I had pulled the Bolas Citadel, that would have been pretty academic from that point, I think. But I went with the Krang and ended up losing that game. So my back was kind of against the wall, but not really.
Don't feel bad about a missed decision there though, because we on the commentary team completely missed for quite a while in the final turns of that game that Krang or Nettlecyst would be, or no, I guess not Nettlecyst because the creature itself isn't an artifact. But you had several lethal
No,
draws
it
because
was it
Krang
was
was 2 damage short of lethal, but
yeah.
any
I
artifact
actually
creature.
I had an out if I drew an untapped land on my last turn because I could have played a Karn and made a Karnstruct,
Right.
which would have had all the keywords that Krang had, and it would have been enough for lethal. But I missed and died. So still not quite sure if I played that exact turn 100 times, like would I tinker for Citadel and would it work out or whatever? Like it's impossible to know. But um, given that Crank doesn't actually have Vigilance, I think that was a much worse target on that board, so I probably should have just gone for the Citadel, but I didn't, lost, and then had to win to end it there. Otherwise, I would have had to play a whole other match, which against Sparlock's deck was risky. Like he had draws I think that would have competed, but
Yeah, so Spurlock went down to the losers bracket where he dispatched Brian. It looks like Spurlock was actually both of Brian's losses in this bracket, 2-0 both times. Brian on the Nadu deck. So we joked a lot with Brian about him passing Scott all these cards, but Brian's deck was no slouch in itself. He was passing this artifact deck because he was taking basically the pretty close to the perfect Nadu deck.
Yeah, it felt like it was going to be the run back of the first Cubevitational we did,
Right.
where Brian similarly went on a loser's bracket miracle run, but aggro got in the way a little bit. Of note, it had the right tools for the Nado matchup, but it also has the right tools for Scott's deck in some degree. Like a brutal containment priest could end a game. The Headliner Scarlet on a board that Scott's barely stabilized to seal it away. Bombardiers gives a ton of reach to his deck, especially with cards like Fury and Palace Jailer and Headliner Scarlet in there. So Parallax Wave able to turn things around. Just a lot going on that it feels like Spurlock has to fight the matchup. But as you talk through those two kind of back and forth games, none of those were the key difference makers. And then in the final game, I believe you had another very early start. Maybe with a Kappa Cannoneer, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think the last game was such an overwhelmingly powerful draw by my deck that I kind of don't even want to go into the details. I just want to point people to the VOD to go watch it. It won't take very long because it was a pretty brutal combination of cards. But obviously very happy to just close the book there and not have to like get into another match where
reset
who knows what would have happened.
Play two more games.
Yeah, so I started the Cubevitational with a 1-2, and then got a 2-1, and then a 3-0, and then a 4-0. So I just got better and better and better as the tournament went on and closed it out.
Ideal.
Yeah. And you actually got to be correct about which cubes you would do better in, as opposed to normal cube evaluations where people will dramatically misunderstand where they'll do well.
People could say a lot about me, but I know myself. I feel pretty confident in that. I know who I am. I know what I'm about. I know what I excel in and what I don't excel in. And at least for this tournament, I nailed it, bro. I got it exactly right.
Yeah, you crushed it. Yeah, I do remember you saying what you mentioned right after the draft that you thought your deck was good enough to win, and clearly it was.
Which I think is a welcome addition to the list of vintage cube decks that have won the Cubevitational, because I think that a lot of the time the decks that have won the Cubevitational, if we look back historically, have not been great. A lot of sits out of tens that get there because that's a very scrappy draft a lot of the time.
Yeah, so. well, right, but that's the thing, right? Like you don't have to draft the best vintage cube deck of all time. You just have to draft the best vintage cube deck at the table today, So.
But everyone had great decks. Definitely not an easy road for this one, and this one just a cut above what we've seen.
I don't want to overstate that this deck was like. I do think this deck was better than all the rest of the table, but I think we had 8 pretty solid decks going around in this. I kind of think that like 7 of the decks at the table would have been the best deck to ever win the Cubevitational, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think Spurlock's deck and Brian's deck for sure are also like. Aggro has won before, but Spurlock's deck would have been the best aggro deck to win. The best green deck to win after, I believe, I actually can't remember if my win was with the green deck or if my loss to Scott in the second Cubevitational was with the green deck. But
that was with the green deck.
Either way, Brian's deck was better than that green deck. So,
yeah, I really like the tournament structure we have. I love that everyone's live to win the tournament going into the last draft. I genuinely think we all had a legitimate chance to win when the vintage draft concluded, like when we finished drafting the cards. Like it would not have surprised me if any one of the people ended up on top. I just happened to like have the better draws and the maybe slightly more powerful deck than some of my opponents. So
Yeah, looking back at the decks, I think there's a couple I disagree with that point on, but largely, yes.
sure,
Great decks.
great decks, great tournaments, great fun, just great overall, great.
Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations, second one.
Thanks
Any
so
other
much.
thoughts on the day, or any other thoughts on being the new villain of the league now as the only repeat winner?
I'm actually pretty excited about that. I love getting this win going into like CubeCon, like that. It's gonna feel pretty good. Um, I'm excited to get a second token. I still don't really know what I'm gonna do with that yet because I think my first one was awesome, and I don't know how I can like compete with that. But I'm still noodling on that. No, it's just ruled. I mean, what are the winners supposed to say in the how do you feel about the day? Obviously, I feel amazing. Like it was awesome. It was so fun, and I won. So like, no complaints, no notes.
Excellent. You mentioned not knowing what you're gonna do for your token yet. Are there any like do you have like any finalists, anything you want to share? It's okay if not, just just curious. For the people.
No, I
You
mean,
gotta give the people what they want.
for so the people may or may not know that I like help out a family of 5 kids and a single mom. So I kind of want to include those kids in the art somehow, but like I haven't figured out how to do that or what token it would even involve or whatever.
Fair enough.
That's
Fair
as
enough.
far as I've gotten. So
Yeah.
That's the exact thought I had, though, because your two kind of defining character traits are movies and working with kids, and movies featured
We
so
covered the
prominently in the
movies.
first one.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so I have to figure out a token that makes sense to have like lots of little things. Like Goblin maybe is a thing, but I didn't make a Goblin token at all in this tournament, so I don't know.
definitely just a thing to keep noodling on then.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, if you guys have anything else, if nothing else, I think we can probably wrap it there.
I'm saying right now, I promise I'm going to get the next one.
All
Ooh,
right. Book
but
it.
what if I want a third though?
Nah,
I'm greedy.
denied.
Denied?
well,
Oh, them's fighting words, brother.
Also, if for some reason
Yeah,
you are watching this video prior to watching the rest of the match videos, like go back and watch them. There's a lot of really good ones in there. There's some not so good ones, but there's a few pretty good ones in there. So
yeah, like we said, a lot of these decks turned out really great, so
Mhm.
check them out.
And cube more.
True.
Okay, I'm done.
Me too.